So Apple just released a new Siri, and I think it's going to replace ChatGPT for most people. Not because it's going to be the smartest model, I don't think that's the point. The point is most people don't need a smartest chatbot sitting as a separate app. They need an assistant that can see what they're doing, that can understand the context around them, can access all of the apps without all of the hustle of connecting them one by one. That's why I think a lot of reactions to Apple's intelligence announcement miss the point. Everyone is comparing it to ChatGPT and saying, yeah, it's not that impressive. Of course, if you're asking if Siri can beat ChatGPT on financial analysis, coding, and other things, of course it can't. But most people don't need financial analysis on their phone. Most people are just doing simpler things. Find that email, add this to my calendar, edit that photo or find that photo, remind me to do this. And for that version of AI, benchmarks are not important. Integrations matter more for this, and that's the whole point. Even though this whole keynote didn't try to beat Google's AI announcements with all of the impressive things, I still found it pretty impressive. Not because Apple showed the craziest AI capabilities, they didn't. Apple showed something different. They showed AI working inside a phone, inside the apps, inside your photos. And that's why it's a different product, so let's break it down. The new Siri is basically rebuilt as an AI assistant. It can have more natural conversations, it can search on the web, it can understand what's on your screen, it can pull personal context across the whole range of apps such as messages, emails, files, photos, and others. And more importantly, it has now a dedicated Siri app. The one thing that right away I thought about is it going to have the same experience with a list of chats as ChatGPT, or is it just a one-off experience? And Apple confirmed that you will have chats synced across all of your devices, which is pretty cool. And that matters a bit more than you think, because if you want to then use Siri for anything more complex than just scheduling an appointment, it has to have that conversation history to access across all of your devices and be able to go into it. It becomes an AI workspace, but with one massive Apple difference. So ChatGPT is very smart. It lives on your phone, but it's basically a very smart guest. It only knows what you give it. So for everything else, you have to either connect it like a Gmail integration, or you have to take a screenshot or send a file in. It doesn't live within your phone. That's why I'm saying it's a guest. And yes, you can connect a lot of things now, but that's an effort. And most people don't want to configure their AI assistant. They just want it to work. And that's where Siri wins. It lives on your phone. It has the operating system, it has access to your screen to see it, it has access to the files, the photos, the calendar, everything. That's why I'm saying when people compare it to ChatGPT, my thought is, does it have to be? The integration layer is much more important for most people than the capabilities layer. So for most everyday tasks, it probably doesn't matter as much. The next exciting part for me was Mac. Because for now, if on Mac you want to do any AI, you will have to open an app like ChatGPT or Claude, drag in your files, drag in the context, and ask it to do something about it or summarize them, for example. The thing that they've showed in the demo is that you can just highlight these 3 files, spawn Siri, and ask it to do something about them. This is pretty exciting and much more convenient than having to go manage it. This is where the future of AI, as I was always saying, is heading. AI working on your computer instead of having a separate app to which you have to drag all of the files and context that you need to. And Apple Home is another good example of this. Instead of seeing one-off messages that somebody passed by your door with a package, it will summarize and understand what it sees on the video and on the images and then clip them together. So if you have a person doing something like, I don't know, cleaning your house, you will get clipped videos from the person moving from one part, from one camera to another. And it's pretty useful, pretty convenient, long overdue as well. And that kind of ties into this whole theme that they're trying to pitch, that AI will see what's on your screen, what's on your computer, it will understand the videos, it will have all of the context that most of the AI apps don't have yet, or you have to try to connect it manually. The photo editing features are also exciting. The idea of spatial reframing is pretty neat. I think this is one of the more AI edge ideas that they've shown. I don't think any app has it, and that kind of explains why they're rate limiting it, and you could get higher limits with a cloud subscription. You could kind of expect that if you're trying to use all of this, you will have rate limits on Apple Intelligence. I do wonder if they're going to have rate limits on other things, not just photo editing. I'm pretty sure they will, But it also depends on how capable these models are. If they're not capable enough as Claude or ChatGPT, then people are just not going to use them for these things, and then you don't really need to think about limits anyway. How much my girlfriend is going to use these photo reframing, I don't know. But she definitely is upset sometimes with what kind of pictures I make. The shortcuts is another great example. So shortcuts themselves were there for quite a long time, but I'll be honest with you, I've never used them. I doubt a lot of people use them as well, because setting up shortcuts automatically is kind of a pain in the ass. The idea that Apple Intelligence will do it now for you, and you can just describe by saying, hey, please notify my husband when I'm leaving work and send him my ETA, or hey, when the evening comes, please take a look at my calendar tomorrow and summarize it to me and send me a notification, or schedule my alarm for the specific time for me to wake up. It's pretty neat instead of you having to do all of these manual things. So Safari and Password also get a bit of an Apple Intelligence touch on them. Safari can now group your tabs by the topic, which I think a lot of other apps are already doing, but again, pretty useful. Don't know how many people are using Safari, but still. And Passwords is genuinely a bit more exciting. When you have compromised passwords and you have to change them, that's a bit of a hustle to go to every single provider and do it. So what they're saying is that you can just click one button and it will go log into the website and update your password without you doing anything. But all of this also locks you into this Passwords app a bit more, which I don't really mind. And so that's what I think could be the moment that Apple native apps become relevant again. Because I have never been using Apple Calendar or iMessages as much, or built-in email, for example. And I'm pretty sure most people didn't as well. But when you have Apple Intelligence that can do all of these things for you, and it's automatically integrated into those apps, of course you're going to be using them more. And perhaps this will be the new beginning for them. And that's a pretty smart move from Apple. But then it arises a question, what about Google Calendar? What about Gmail? What about all of the other tools all of us are already using? Are they going to be integrated? Are they going to be used as default if I want them to be? And knowing Apple, the answer is likely no. A lot of people are using other apps such as Notion, Slack, Spotify. What about them? Are they going to be integrated automatically? Is Siri going to be able to use them by default? And so this is the part where I'm still curious. Apple says that third-party developers will be able to integrate the context and Apple Intent so that Siri can access all of the context information and use these apps. So the direction is pretty clear, but it also depends on how developers actually implement it. And I think that creates a very interesting second-order effect. I think this is going to push a lot of app developers to make it more agentically AI accessible, so that AI can do actions in this app, take context from this app, which most app developers have not been doing. They have been creating, but not all of them have been creating MCPs so that Claude or ChatGPT can connect to it. But if it's more natively integrated into the app development itself, I think this is going to be a big new revolution in that as well. But again, it arises a question. Would only Siri be able to access it, or can ChatGPT now access all of these things as well? Can Claude read the same personal context? So if you're an app developer, Apple is basically saying if you want your app to be useful in the next version of iOS, you have to make it agentically accessible. There's also a funny twist here. Apple's intelligence system is not fully Apple as some people might suggest. It's powered by Gemini models. What they're saying is that they've trained their own intelligence models based on Gemini models, but in my experience, Gemini models are not as capable as ChatGPT or Claude. And that's why I think ChatGPT has a problem now, because if you can do all of the things more natively using Siri, most people using ChatGPT for regular question and answers or some simple tasks won't be doing that anymore. They will just use Siri. And that means a very big portion of ChatGPT's user base might migrate now. But it also depends on how capable Siri is and how smart it is. If the model is really behind on the capabilities with ChatGPT, then it won't really matter and most people will still stay in ChatGPT. Because even though I said a lot of tasks don't require intelligence, I would say higher intelligence still helps in a lot of use cases and people still need it. And this is where one hardware caveat is surprising for me. If you look at the list of the devices that are supported by the most advanced Apple Intelligence, you only see iPhone 17 Pro. What about iPhone 17? What about iPhone 16 Pro that they promised to have the Edge AI intelligence capabilities? What's going to happen to them? I think the answer is they're going to have AI intelligence capabilities, but not those Edge AI intelligence capabilities, which is a bit frustrating, or maybe even very frustrating for a lot of users. Basically, going to be not the question of do you have Siri AI, but do you have a good Siri AI? Another push from Apple for you to buy new iPhones. And there's another problem with regulations. Siri AI is not going to be available in EU or China. With China, I can kind of get the argument that they're trying to protect their own local models, but what the hell EU? I just think Europe is over-regulating itself. So I think we had to wait for Siri to be announced just now, not for the past 2 years, is because they didn't want to release just a chatbot. They wanted a more integrated, holistic experience, and this is what they're presenting. And I'm pretty excited about it. An ability for Siri to see everything on your screen, to have context from all of the apps, integrate with them, do actions in them is pretty amazing instead of just having a chatbot or Q&A experience. Plus, they had to make all of the development related improvements so that developers of the apps can also integrate it themselves. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying ChatGPT and Claude are going away. I am still going to use them for deep research, for technical, for complex tasks, for software development. But I think Siri in the next year or two, when capabilities improve, will replace ChatGPT for most of the simple tasks for most users, because they just won't need ChatGPT anymore because they can ask Siri. And if it's included for free, then it's even a bigger advantage instead of using ChatGPT. So when I get access to the beta, I want to see a couple of things and want to test them out. First, how good is this message history? Does Siri app actually feel like ChatGPT, or does it just have a slight archive of past requests? Second, how far does this personal context go? Can it find all of the relevant context across my email, messages, photos, and everything else? Third, how well does it work across non-Apple apps like Slack, Gmail, and others? Fourth, how reliable those app actions are. Is it going to make stupid mistakes? And I'm pretty sure it will, because all of the demos that they showed were impressive. But don't you think they tried to do them quite a few times, or at least more than once, before they nailed them? I think they did. So my take is this: Apple didn't need to rebuild the best chatbot and the most capable model. They needed to build the thing that would work best in their Apple ecosystem. And if the new Siri can actually use your context, see your screen, have access to all of the app's files and folders and pictures and messages, you don't need anything else. That's what most people need anyway. So that sounds like the most Apple version of AI possible. It's not the biggest demo, it's not the best model, but it can quietly become the preferred choice of most people. Now, if you're interested, I can do a separate video talking about the hands-on experience using the beta access. So let me know in the comments below, and like this video and subscribe.